As powerful as the Jedi may have been, even they needed help sometimes. Today we're going to be talking about one of the groups dedicated to supporting the Jedi during the latter days of the Old Republic, the Antarian Rangers. I say at the end of each video, leave any topics you want me to cover in the comments, and this is one of those topics that you guys asked for, so the system works. The Antarian Rangers were first introduced in the X-Wing books, specifically Wraith Squadron with the character of Tyria Sarkin, one of the last remaining Antarian Rangers. Most of the in-depth information about the Rangers comes from a Wizards of the Coast tabletop RPG book, specifically an online supplement for the 2003 Heroes Guide about the Rangers as a whole. The origins of the Rangers in-universe go back about 600 years before the Clone Wars. Now, one of my favorite things to do on the channel is to complain about Wikipedia being used as a be-all, end-all source of specific information. So I'll point out here that the Wikipedia article mentions the year 620 before the Battle of Yavin as their start date specifically and unqualified. This is basically a misapplication of the phrase from the online article, where it says some 600 years before the Clone Wars, and whomever wrote that part of the article just took the start year of the Clone Wars and subtracted 600. This is obviously an inaccurate interpretation of the precision of that line. So just to say, Wikipedia, much like Wikipedia, is a great starting point, but if you need something specific, always check the sources. Same with lore YouTubers, always double check us too. Anyways, the name Antarian Rangers comes from their planet of origin, Antar 4, homeworld of the Godals. The founder of the group, a Godal named Cascodel, had been turned down by the Jedi for training after being deemed not strong enough in the Force. He went on to become a successful entrepreneur with the help of his limited Force powers. But despite this rejection, Cascodel remained a strong proponent of the Order, despite some growing latent anti-Jedi sentiment in the galaxy. Later in life, the master who had rejected him, Maris Temple, returned to Antar 4 while fulfilling Jedi duties and became friends with Cascodel. Temple lamented his lack of resources to do everything he felt necessary, and Cascodel decided to devote the resources he'd built up as a business person towards helping his friend, becoming the first Antarian Ranger. The organization existed primarily on a local basis at first, with Cascodel personally assisting Temple, but upon Temple's death, Cascodel refocused his personal efforts on expanding the reach of the Rangers, spreading them across many heavily populated worlds, especially core worlds like Coruscant and Corellia, ensuring the Jedi would have ample aid wherever they were needed. The Rangers fulfilled several different functions. Primarily, they would engage in covert ops and reconnaissance, but they would also help the Jedi in anything that may be considered dirty work for the Jedi. They were also trained in combat, with the Hero's Guide mentioning the AR-1 blaster rifle being built by Gref Tim's Industrial for their use. While the galaxy at large often had even more positive of a view of the Rangers than they did of the Jedi, the relationship between the Jedi Order and the Antarian Rangers was both unofficial and varied throughout time. They were never officially sanctioned or endorsed by the Jedi under the old Jedi Order, so the decision to make use of their services often came down to the choices of individual Jedi. As the Clone Wars approached and the Jedi turned further inward, entire branches of the Rangers closed out of disuse, driving many of the Rangers into private mercenary work. This did briefly reverse during the Clone Wars, as the beleaguered Jedi looked for any help they could get. After Order 66, the Antarian Rangers were hunted down the same way as the Jedi, with few surviving long into the Empire's reign. There was evidently a hereditary element to the Rangers, with multiple generations often serving their cause. Wraith Squadron pilot Tyria Sarkin of Taparawa would not have been very old when the Jedi Order collapsed, implying she would have been raised into the Rangers by her parents after that point. During periods, or in branches of the Jedi, where emotional attachment was less forbidden and marriage allowed, something we see, for example, with the Corellian Jedi, but which became somewhat more muddied with the prequels when George Lucas fleshed out his vision for the Order, it was fairly common for Jedi to marry Antarian Rangers. Sarkin, who has a small level of Force talents, theorized that her limited Force affinity, which she used as a pilot in Wraith Squadron as well as beforehand, came from such a union. These intermarriages were not the only reason for Antarian Rangers being Force sensitive, though. Much like Cascodel, Many Rangers were recruited and trained specifically from among individuals who were scouted by the Jedi Order but then deemed not strong enough in the Force to become a full Jedi, or who may have been rejected for other reasons. Luke Skywalker attempted to train Tyria Sarkin as a full Jedi later on, but he too concluded that her Force potential may not be sufficient to become a Jedi. Despite that, she is shown to be using a lightsaber against Mandalorian infiltrators to the Jedi Temple, and her son Doran Tainer did become a full Jedi. There was an attempt to revitalize the Rangers after the Empire, with some surviving members devoting themselves to assisting Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order. In particular, these members assisted Luke in the organization and protection of the Great River Project, an underground network intended to help the Jedi stay safe from the Yuuzhan Vong and the Yuuzhan Vong's allies like the Peace Brigade while they were being hunted during the Vong War. This is somewhat different than the relationship we see between the Rangers and the Jedi Order before the Empire, with Luke Skywalker as the Grand Master of the Order essentially seeking their aid directly, whereas before they were essentially ignored by the Jedi Order on an official basis. It's unknown what happened to them after this point, though if they survived the war, they likely went on serving the new Jedi Order until at least the rise of Darth Krayt. That's going to do it for today. As always, if you have any further topics like this that you would like me to cover, please leave them in the comments. If you've enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like or subscribing for more. Tonight there will be another episode of my podcast with Eckhart's Ladder, Tapcaf Transmissions, so you can check that out live tonight on his channel when it's posted as a video here on Datapad tomorrow, or you can search for it on platforms like Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.